Deep within the heart of Manhattan, towering above the city's bustling streets, stands the United Nations headquarters, a symbol of global diplomacy, peacekeeping, and international cooperation. But behind its iconic glass facade and the fluttering blue and white flag, there are secrets that the world's most powerful leaders would rather keep hidden. In a heavily guarded section of the building, past layers of security checkpoints, surveillance cameras, and biometric scanners, lies a vault. This is no ordinary vault. It is a repository for the world's most sensitive documents, files that, if revealed, could alter the course of nations. And inside this vault, locked away from prying eyes, sits a report. Not just any report, but one that has the potential to shake the very foundations of a country thousands of miles away from New York, Guyana. This report is not just another bureaucratic file gathering dust. It is a document so explosive, so potentially damaging to the carefully crafted narrative of stability and progress in Guyana that senior diplomats and high-ranking officials have gone to extraordinary lengths to keep it out of public view. The contents of this report are known only to a select few, those with the highest security clearance, those who understand the stakes involved. For months, perhaps even years, there have been whispers in the corridors of power, rumors of a dossier that could upend everything the world thinks it knows about Guyana's meteoric rise. The stakes are enormous. Guyana, once a quiet nation on the northern coast of South America, has recently found itself thrust into the global spotlight. The reason? Oil. Billions of barrels of it discovered off its shores, promising untold wealth and a future transformed. International investors, energy giants, and political leaders have all flocked to Georgetown, eager to stake their claim in what some have called the last great oil boom. The official story is one of hope, prosperity, and a nation finally coming into its own. But the report hidden in the UN's vault tells a very different story. It is a story of backroom deals, environmental devastation, and a fragile society teetering on the brink. It is a story that, if revealed, could shatter the illusion of stability and expose the raw, uncomfortable truths that lie beneath the surface. The report's findings are as dramatic as they are disturbing. It details how the rapid influx of oil money has created deep divisions within Guyanese society, fueling corruption, inequality, and social unrest. It documents the environmental toll of unchecked extraction, rivers poisoned, forests razed, and coastal communities left vulnerable to rising seas and oil spills. It exposes the shadowy networks of influence that have allowed foreign corporations to reap massive profits while local populations see little benefit. And it warns that unless urgent action is taken, the very future of Guyana is at risk. The oil boom, once hailed as a blessing, could become a curse, one that leaves the country more divided, more polluted, and more unstable than ever before. For the diplomats and officials who have read the report, the implications are clear. If the truth were to come out, it could trigger a crisis of confidence, not just in Guyana, but in the international institutions that have championed its rise. It could force a reckoning with the costs of unchecked development and the price of silence. And so, for now, the report remains locked away, its secrets known only to a handful of insiders. But the questions it raises cannot be buried forever. As Guyana stands at a crossroads, the world must decide. Will it confront the uncomfortable truths hidden in the UN's vault, or will it continue to look the other way, hoping that the promise of oil wealth will outweigh the risks? The answer to that question could determine not just the fate of one nation, but the future of an entire region. The United Nations, an institution often seen as the world's moral compass and a guardian of global stability, is not always as transparent as it appears. Behind the imposing glass facade of its headquarters in New York, and beyond the fluttering flags that symbolize international unity, there are secrets, some of which, if revealed, could shake the very foundations of nations. Today we're pulling back the curtain on one such secret, a story the UN would rather keep hidden from the public eye. Deep within the confidential corridors of the United Nations, a recent internal assessment has sent shockwaves through the organization. This report, which has not been made available to the public, paints a dire picture of Guyana, a small South American nation that, until recently, was hailed as an economic miracle. The world has watched in awe as Guyana's GDP soared, fueled by the discovery and rapid exploitation of vast offshore oil reserves. International investors flocked to Georgetown, the capital, and the country's leaders promised a new era of prosperity for all Guyanese citizens. But according to the UN's own experts, this so-called miracle is teetering on the edge of disaster. The assessment concludes that Guyana's economic boom is unsustainable and that the country is on the brink of a catastrophic social collapse. The warning is stark. Unless urgent action is taken, the very fabric of Guyanese society could unravel within a matter of years. The roots of this looming crisis are complex, but at the heart of the problem lies the explosive growth of the oil sector. In just a few short years, Guyana has transformed from one of the poorest countries in the Western Hemisphere into one of the world's fastest-growing economies. Billions of dollars have poured into the country, and a new elite has emerged. Politicians, business people, and foreign investors who have reaped enormous profits from the oil bonanza. Shiny new buildings rise above the streets of Georgetown, luxury cars cruise the boulevards, and international oil executives are a common sight in the city's upscale hotels. On the surface, it looks like a success story, but beneath this glittering facade, deep inequalities are festering. For many ordinary Guyanese, the promised benefits of the oil boom have failed to materialize. In the shadow of the new skyscrapers, poverty remains widespread. In rural villages and urban slums alike, families struggle to afford basic necessities. The cost of living has skyrocketed, driven up by inflation and speculation. Public services, healthcare, education, and infrastructure have not kept pace with the country's newfound wealth. Instead, the gap between rich and poor has widened, fueling resentment and social tension. The UN report warns that this growing inequality is a ticking time bomb, one that could explode into unrest and violence if left unaddressed. The environmental consequences of Guyana's oil rush are equally alarming. The UN's sustainable development experts have documented widespread ecological damage, from oil spills contaminating rivers to deforestation and habitat loss. Local communities, many of whom depend on fishing and agriculture for their livelihoods, are bearing the brunt of this destruction. Protests have erupted across the country, with activists demanding greater accountability from both the government and the multinational oil companies operating in Guyana's waters. The report warns that if these environmental issues are not addressed, they could further destabilize the country and undermine its long-term prospects. The UN's internal report does not mince words. It describes the situation in Guyana as a resource-cursed tsunami, a term used to describe the paradox that countries rich in natural resources often experience less economic growth, more corruption, and greater social conflict than those with fewer resources. The experts warn that Guyana is following a well-trodden path, one that has led other nations to ruin. The breakneck pace of oil extraction, combined with weak institutions and poor governance, is creating a perfect storm. Unless the government takes immediate steps to strengthen transparency, invest in social programs, and protect the environment, the report predicts that Guyana's current boom will end in disaster. The world may see headlines about Guyana's rapid growth, but behind the scenes, the UN is bracing for a collapse that could have far-reaching consequences, not just for Guyana, but for the entire region. First, it details a coming hyperinflation crisis. The massive influx of US dollars is not being sterilized effectively, leading to an uncontrollable devaluation of the Guyanese dollar that, honestly, will make food and basic necessities unaffordable for the average citizen within 18 months. Second, it warns of irreversible ecological devastation. Satellite imagery analyzed by the UN shows that the rapid infrastructure build-out and flaring are poisoning water tables and destroying mangrove forests at a rate far worse than publicly admitted, setting the stage for an environmental disaster that will outlast the oil. Third, and most damningly, the report accuses the government of systematic fiscal obfuscation. It alleges that a significant portion of oil revenues are being funneled into off-budget, opaque sovereign wealth funds with weak oversight, creating the perfect conditions for elite capture and corruption on a staggering scale. The UN is suppressing this because exposing it would force a direct public confrontation with a member state, destabilize international investor confidence, and admit the failure of their own development frameworks to prevent another nation from falling into the trap they've documented for decades. This is the unvarnished, terrifying truth, a reality that often lurks in the shadows, far from the polished statements and carefully crafted press releases that dominate our screens. Behind the imposing facade of the United Nations headquarters, as the sun sets and the world's flags flutter in the evening breeze, decisions are made that shape the fate of millions. These are not just symbolic gestures or ceremonial meetings, They are the epicenter of global power where the interests of nations collide, and the future is quietly negotiated behind closed doors. The secure vault doors closing are not just a metaphor. They represent the secrecy, the layers of protection, and the barriers that keep the public from truly understanding what happens within these walls. For most of us, the truth is filtered, sanitized, and presented in a way that is meant to reassure, not to alarm. But the reality is far more complex, and often, far more disturbing. The diplomacy of smiles and handshakes is designed to hide this truth. When cameras flash and world leaders clasp hands, it's easy to believe that progress is being made, that peace is within reach, and that cooperation is the order of the day. But these carefully choreographed moments are often just the surface. Beneath the smiles, there are tensions, rivalries, and unspoken agendas. Every handshake is a performance, every smile, a calculated move in a much larger game. The international summits and diplomatic gatherings are as much about optics as they are about substance. The public sees unity, but behind the scenes, there are fierce debates, secret deals, and compromises that rarely see the light of day. The world's most powerful individuals are experts at projecting an image of harmony, even when the reality is anything but harmonious. The true story is often hidden in the details, in the off-the-record conversations, and in the confidential documents that never make it to the public eye. To get the unfiltered facts and understand the real forces shaping our world, you need to look beyond the headlines and the official statements. It takes courage and persistence to dig deeper, to question the narratives that are presented as truth, and to seek out the information that is deliberately kept from public view. Investigative journalists spend countless hours poring over confidential documents, analyzing classified reports, and connecting the dots that others overlook. Their work is often dangerous, thankless, and met with resistance from those who would prefer to keep the truth hidden. But it is through their efforts that we catch glimpses of the real story, the one that is not sanitized for public consumption. In the newsroom, editors and reporters debate what to publish, weighing the risks and the responsibilities that come with exposing uncomfortable truths. The process is painstaking, and the stakes are high, but the pursuit of truth is what drives them forward. Without this relentless search for facts, we would be left with only the official version of events, a version that is often incomplete, if not outright misleading. You need a source that isn't afraid to look, to ask the hard questions, and to challenge the status quo. In a world where information is abundant but truth is scarce, independent journalism is more important than ever. The journalists who work late into the night, driven by a sense of duty and a passion for uncovering the facts, are the ones who make a difference. They are not beholden to governments, corporations, or special interests. Their only allegiance is to the truth and to the public's right to know. When you visit an independent news website, you are supporting a tradition of fearless reporting, a tradition that values accuracy, integrity, and accountability above all else. These journalists are the watchdogs of democracy, the ones who hold the powerful to account and give voice to the voiceless. Their work is essential, not just for understanding the world as it is, but for imagining the world as it could be. By seeking out independent sources, you are taking an active role in the pursuit of truth and refusing to settle for easy answers or comforting lies. That's why we invite you to join us on this journey. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, not just as a gesture, but as a commitment to staying informed, to questioning what you hear, and to demanding more from the media you consume. Subscribing is more than just following a channel. It's about becoming part of a community that values truth, transparency, and critical thinking. When you subscribe, you are signaling that you care about the issues that matter, that you want to be part of the conversation, and that you are willing to look beyond the surface. The notification bell ensures that you never miss an update, that you are always in the loop when new information comes to light, and that you have access to the latest guides, analyses, and investigations. In a world where news moves fast and stories can change in an instant, staying connected is crucial. By subscribing, you are making a statement that you refuse to be left in the dark, that you want to be informed, and that you are ready to take action when it matters most. So you never miss our essential guides and updates, resources designed to help you make sense of a complex world. Our team works tirelessly to bring you in-depth reporting, expert analysis, and stories that go beyond the headlines. We believe that knowledge is power, and that an informed public is the foundation of a healthy democracy. By staying engaged, by asking questions, and by seeking out reliable information, you are taking control of your own understanding. The world is changing rapidly, and the challenges we face are more interconnected than ever before. But with the right information, and with a commitment to truth, we can navigate these challenges together. Thank you for watching, for caring, and for being part of a community that values honesty, integrity, and the relentless pursuit of truth. Stay curious, stay critical, and stay connected, because the story is never over, and the search for truth never ends.